Welcome, Jet fans. Week 1 is finally here. The Jets open the 2022 season against the Baltimore Ravens at MetLife Stadium, and we're going to talk about the keys to a successful victory for the Jets at home against the highly favored Baltimore Ravens. We got news this week on Zach Wilson's injury updates and an expected timeline for him to return, and we're going to discuss a little bit about what that means for his recovery and why a extension to his injury timeline may have been provided. Additionally, we have some updates on the offensive line. Offense tackle Duane Brown is injured. Who's next on the depth chart? What's coming? And did the Jets do enough to fix that offensive line? We'll start off with the Zach Wilson news. What this means for Zach Wilson on his injury timeline. So, as we might know by now, Zach Wilson's going to be extended to his injury timeline for a October return against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Week 4 at the earliest, as stated by Robert Saleh. So, what does this mean as far as the original timeline provided? Originally, we were told the injury timeline is roughly 2 to 4 weeks. The 2 to 6 week timeline did get out there from time to time from different media outlets, but we were kind of stuck on that 2 to 4 week timeline, which would have put us at this Tuesday, which in theory, and in my eyes, I thought that would make Zach Wilson available for the Cleveland Browns game. Apparently, that's not the case, and I don't think it was ever the case for him to be ready for the Baltimore Ravens game, although Saleh tried doing that, coach speak and try getting us to believe and Baltimore Ravens to believe that there was a possibility. But I don't think there ever really truly was a possibility. I think Jet fans may have just got excited with the coach speak, as I did for a moment as well. But it wasn't going to happen. He's not coming out against the Ravens. He's not coming out against the Browns, and he won't be out against the Bengals. He'll be coming out against the Steelers at the earliest, Week 4. So what does this mean, and why is that timeline so extended? So the 2 to 4 week timeline was from a physicality standpoint. Is his knee going to be fixed? Is it going to be back up to par? And it sounds like for the most part, some of those areas might be fixed. They put him through a workout. Apparently, everything came out good from what we hear. There were no setbacks. So if there were no setbacks, why won't he be ready for Week 2? And the best thing I can say as far as why that's not the case is they want him to be ready mentally, as opposed to just being ready physically, which nothing wrong with that. At some point, though, he's going to have to get out there, and the longer it takes for his recovery, the fear I have is the NFL usually teams start hitting that next gear after the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. Usually that second month is where you really start to identify who teams are, who players are, so on and so forth. So Zach Wilson's going to come in October at the earliest, and just kind of be getting warmed up. He's going to have some games of rust, you would imagine. But it seems like what the Jets are trying to get accomplished with Zach is they're trying to give him back the weeks that he lost from the injury. So as we know, he hadn't practiced since before the Eagles game. That's been 3 weeks, going on 4 weeks this Tuesday would be the 4 week timeline. So for the Jets to come in there, they're trying to give him that extra time back to get him ready, almost give him like a quasi training camp or a rehab assignment, if in baseball terms, just trying to get him reacclimated, get him ready, not rush him back, because that can only do worse. I mean, we don't know where his mind's going to be with that knee. Is it going to be, you always hear about players coming back from injury, after a knee injury especially. Are they going to be, hesitant to the hits, so on and so forth. So you really don't want that out of Zach Wilson. You want him to play to the best of his ability. You want him to play, fear-free. You want him to be what he was against the Titans last year, which getting out of the pocket, making things happen. That's what the Jets need out of him this year. And if he's coming back and he's not mentally there, you're not going to get that player. So I think that they're doing the right move here, but only time will tell. Moving on from Zach, let's go into the offensive line. News came out this week as well, injury-related, of course. But Duane Brown, who the Jets brought in as a replacement to Mekhi Becton after Mekhi was lost for the season, has been ruled out this week. And Robert Saleh, in a press conference, announced that the injury could push him to IR. Whether that's short-term IR, long-term IR, hopefully not, but who knows? So there's a stigma out there right now that the Jets didn't do enough to fix the offensive line, and I think that you can never really do enough. There's never, enough that can be done. But from a Joe Douglas standpoint, he brought in, Mekhi Becton via draft 3 years ago, and was hoping that he'd be able to come back and be the best player possible, and hopefully get through the season injury free. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. But they had a backup plan. Their backup plan was Duane Brown. They brought him in. They signed him. He was here, but unfortunately didn't make it through training camp. And here he is with a shoulder injury, and who knows what the timeline for an injury recovery is. But then, behind the scenes, we also drafted another offensive lineman, a mid-round pick. Wasn't Ikem Ekwonu. It wasn't, a second round offensive lineman. It was a guy we drafted in the fourth round. And you can say what you want about it, but the Jets needed to upgrade at the skill positions, and that's what they did in the draft. That was their goal. That is what they accomplished. They brought in guys at skill positions. Could they have addressed offensive line sooner? Sure. But it would have cost us either Sauce. It would have cost us Garrett Wilson. It could have cost us Jermaine Johnson. And it could have cost us Breece Hall. Any one of those four players would not be on the Jets today if the Jets had addressed offensive line sooner than they had. Could they have traded up? They already used a lot of capital, and Max Mitchell was, I believe, their last draft pick, or maybe Michael Clemens came after him. But, they could have traded up, sure, but, at that point, the Jets did what they needed to do in the draft. You can't really fault them for not going offensive line. Sure, in hindsight, we can all say, could have drafted someone better, could have drafted someone sooner, so on and so forth. But I highly doubt that the Jets were expecting Mekhi to get injured, and had to imagine, even back then, they had some thoughts as to a backup tackle to bring in during this time if something were to happen to Mekhi, or even if nothing happened to Mekhi, if someone was willing to come in on a reserve role. I think that those thoughts were out there, which is why offensive line was not addressed sooner in the draft. They did the right thing in my eyes in the draft, but, again, hindsight, we'll see what happens there. Now, most importantly, outside of these injuries, we have a game this week. We have a game against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens are a much better team than we are. We know that. From a coaching standpoint, overall talent, they might have us beat from a top-notch talent. But what the Jets have is a young team of a lot of unknowns, players that we're not sure of, players that, pop up at the screen because of what they accomplished in college and what we saw from them last year. The growth of Elijah Moore, the growth of Michael Carter, Elijah Vera Tucker. Can he grow into an all-pro guard? What do we expect out of the young group of rookies that we have? The 3 first-round picks, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall. And what's it going to take for these guys to come in here and beat a very well-coached team that has had months, weeks, however long it took they've taken to prepare. From a coaching standpoint, I think this is a big test for Robert Saleh. I don't think there's really a team that you want to play against in week one. Ravens being coached by John Harbaugh, they're going to come in very prepared. So what's it going to take for Robert Saleh and this team to beat the Ravens? It comes down to really 3 things, in my opinion. Number 1, you have got to stop the run. You cannot let Lamar Jackson beat you with the run. Fortunately for the Jets, it sounds like Dobbins might not be able to play this week, so that's going to take one tool out of Greg Roman's tool belt as far as play calling. He's not going to have J.K. Dobbins in there, but Lamar Jackson is plenty in an offensive coordinator's tool belt if he wants to attack a team with a run. So it's going to come down to the Jets and that very aggressive defensive line to come in there and attack and rotate and get the pressure in there and stop the run. Does that mean that if we stop the run, we're going to win the game? No, because Lamar Jackson has proven time and time again that he is not just a running quarterback. He can throw the ball too. But with that being said, the Jets do have a secondary that's been highly upgraded with Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Michael Carter's coming in for a second year, Jordan Whitehead is back there, LaMarcus Joyner is back there. We have a better secondary on paper than we did last year, and you would expect it'll prove itself out as the season goes on. But with the receiver talent the Ravens have outside of Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews, you don't truly have a player that you're scared of from a passing standpoint. So I do believe the Jets come in there, stop the run. That secondary should be able to do enough to stop the passing game. You would hope. In addition to stopping the run, we're also going to need to run the football. Beat the Ravens at their own game. If we can outrun the Ravens, that would be a huge accomplishment, and I think it'd be a huge stepping stone into a victory. Let's prove to the NFL and to all those naysayers about why the Jets give up a 5th-round pick on a running back. Let's prove to them that the reason you pick a running back in the 2nd round and use a 5th-round pick, which is going to eventually turn into a potential practice squad player, you would only hope. Let's prove to them why you draft a running back of that skill set in the 2nd round to pair with a running back you drafted in the prior year in Michael Carter, and show what 2 running backs that are slippery, elusive, can make plays after the catch, can run the football very efficiently in the system. I'm very impressed to see what the Jets can do with this running game, and you would only hope that once that running game gets going, and once this line starts to get a groove, because that's a big fear with the way the offensive line has been going. They haven't had time to gel together, but the best way to do that is with a solid running game. Let's get these running backs in space. Let's let them make plays, and let's open things up with these elite receivers. In my opinion, at some point, the door's going to open up for Elijah Moore. We know what he was last year during that stretch of time that Zach was injured. He was putting up 100-yard games. He was scoring touchdowns. He was making catches. He was doing it all. And now he's going to have Corey Davis back there as well with him. Corey Davis missed a lot of time last year, so he's back. So you're not going to have that one-on-one coverage. And let's not forget the rookie Garrett Wilson, who I've brought up multiple times in this video. Garrett Wilson is going to be there as well. You have 3 solid wide receivers to mix in with the upgrades at tight end. Tyler Conklin, C.J. Uzomah. I don't think Ruckert's going to have a role, but he can come out there in certain packages and be someone that's out there as well. But there are targets out there that we haven't had in a very, very long time. And I'd be very interested to see how this offense moves if that running game gets going. Because you cannot put 8 people in the box like teams may have been able to do in the past when the Jets did not have any talent in the outside. It's a lot different than it was 2 years ago. We have skill players out the wazoo right now. So let's get that running game going, open things up, and let's see what these guys can do when they have one-on-one coverage and see if they can get open. I think the track record of Elijah Moore says what it says. Corey Davis has had a pretty decent career, although he didn't have a great year with the Jets. When he was there, he was putting up yards and probably would have been on pace for a 1,000-yard season had he not been injured. And Garrett Wilson, I'm very high on Garrett Wilson. I think it's saying a lot that Elijah Moore is what he is, but I still have a lot of praise in Garrett Wilson. I think he's going to be a great player. So, just all in all, from a skill position player, I think the Jets are ready to take off. It just really comes down to the growth and maturity. It's only week 1. We're not going to know what these guys are after week 1, but what a big way to kind of come out of the season if Elijah Moore can make a couple big plays. If Garrett Wilson can make a couple of big plays, it's going to mean so much. And the third thing that needs to happen this week, we're home. That stadium needs to let Baltimore understand where they are. They are not in Baltimore. They are at MetLife Stadium. Being a Jet fan, I'm a little biased, but when we're good, man, this fan base is just something different. We're fun. We're awesome. We're great. We've been through so much, but as much as we've been through, I remember growing up, in my teenage years, in the early 2000s, 2010, during the 2 playoff runs. This fan base was just, the best thing it was. We were so much fun, ground and pound. Rex Ryan had Mark Sanchez's back, although we understood what he was as a quarterback. But we had a good team. Even the Chad Pennington years, we were on and off, good season, bad season, good season, bad season, but we were always kind of, you know, that next year away. We always felt like we had that like team put together that was gonna, be something exciting to watch. At least, had a shot. Prove to these players, MetLife, prove to them what it means to be a good player in New York. Something that's gone away from a lot of people's minds is that, you know, New York is different. It is different. If you win in New York, if you win in that stadium, I mean, I can only imagine what the atmosphere is going to be in that stadium on September 11th, at home, week one opener. You know, all the excitement from the offseason, the free agent additions, the draft class, everything, all coming down to this moment of, you know, week one against the Baltimore Ravens. If we have a shot in this game, which I truly think we do, I think we have a shot. I mean, are the Ravens better than us? Yeah, again, sure. I said it in the opening segment of this video. The Ravens are better than us, but we have a shot. That's all. That's all it takes in this league. Any team could win any week, but we have the talent. And if these players, Sauce, I mean, I can go down the line: Sauce, Garrett Wilson, Jermaine Johnson, Michael Carter, the other Michael Carter, Jordan Whitehead, LaMarcus Joyner, go down the entire list. There's talent everywhere. Quan Alexander, who we just brought in, C.J. Mosley in a revenge game against his former team. Not that there's really a revenge factor. They didn't do anything wrong to him. He went off and signed a big contract. But, I mean, the defensive line, I haven't really brought up anybody out there. I mean, Quinnen Williams coming into his fourth year with us. I mean, the arrow's only trending up for him as a player. John Franklin Myers, who, has been, every bit of what he's worth since coming here. He's got a big extension last year, and I mean he's a great player in there. And I mean, there's so many players here that we may not have that top end player. Carl Lawson coming back for. I mean, just the names are popping off here and there. I mean, there's no reason from a talent standpoint that we can't compete and make this a game in the fourth quarter. And at that point, all it'll take is a big play. Where is it going to come from? Who knows? But all it's going to take is a big play. And MetLife has got to let the team know it. If this team understands what it takes to win and what it will do if you win, I think that all the players understand. But I think if they understand the feeling of that happening, feel it one time, this team, if they feel it, it can only go up from here. I truly think the talent is there. Is it Super Bowl talent? Probably not yet. Definitely not yet. We still have a couple of years to go before that's a conversation. But it's got to start somewhere. Why not start now? Make a big play. Win this game. Take some control of something. Win a game in September. Take it now. Really change it. You talk about years and years and years, change the culture, but the way you do it is to win, and win against teams you're not supposed to win against. Baltimore Ravens, we are not supposed to win against them. But for some reason, I might be crazy, I think we have a shot. And I guess we'll find out soon enough. But again, MetLife, let these guys know it. Let these guys understand what it takes. What will happen if you win? What will happen if you make a big play? Every single play. Third down stops, even a tackle for a loss or a tackle for a short game, just get it out there. Get it out there. Those jet chants have to be glaring. Let this team understand what it takes. These guys were all young. They've played in college. They have not played in the NFL, a lot of these players. And for the guys that have been in the NFL and have been with us, they haven't heard the roar that MetLife can really present. Maybe the Titans game, that game was pretty loud. Maybe the Bengals game, that game was pretty loud too. But I mean, a week one victory against a team that you're just not supposed to win against, I think that will really propel this team into something that, I mean, who knows? So my prediction for this game, I think my video says enough of it. I think we come out with a victory. I think that we come out with a victory of a score of 24-20. There's going to be a big play in the fourth quarter. Is it going to be a defensive play? Is it going to be an offensive play? Who knows? But my bet is that this defense is going to come and show up. They're going to come in and they're going to stop the run. And if they can stop the run, I think you're going to have enough talent back there to, limit this offense as much as possible. And if that's the case, I think come Monday with the reaction video, I think we're going to have a pretty good reaction. But again, only time will tell. So again, that's my prediction. 24-20 Jets. Really appreciate the feedback. Please like and subscribe, and go Jets.